Hey guys, welcome to the video. My name is Redouane. I'm a concept artist from Algeria and you are tuned to photomanipulation.com. On this channel, we take you beyond the Photoshop basics and into the world of advanced digital art. In this video, I'm going to show you a speed art of me doing a fantasy landscape or a fantasy scene. And while the video is going, I'm going to give you tips and tricks and we are going to talk about concept art in general. And make sure to stick till the end of this video because I'm sure one of these tips or tricks will help you to take your images to the next level. So without any further ado, let's start with the image. Okay guys, so the speed art just started and let's start talking about the image. Okay, so I have the final image in front of me and I'm going to talk about things that might appear later on the video. Okay, so let's start. Let's see. On the speed art, you will realize that I started with a sketch, and let's talk about the sketch. So when you are making a concept art, I recommend start with a sketch. You don't have to use the graphic tablet. You don't have to have the digital painting skills or the experience. Even though I have the graphic tablet, but I don't use it. I didn't use it on this image. All the things I added from paintings and the sketch was by using mouse and some brushes that I got from DeviantArt, and I'm going to leave the link on the description. Okay, so when you are making the sketch, you don't have to be detailed. Just paint some basic shapes so you can follow when you are placing the stock images that you have. Now, the sketch is just so you don't get lost while you are working on the image and you know what you are doing. Okay, it's not necessary to have a sketch. It's just about the mental side of working on an image. When you don't start with a sketch, you will realize that when you start placing the stock images, the work will start to look messy and you will lose the interests of making it. So when you start with the sketch, or let's say you don't start with a sketch, let's say you see an image or a artwork from another artist and you inspired from it, download that artwork on your PC, and when you are working on your image, open it in a separate window on your Photoshop and just look at it while you are working so you know where to place your objects. So the sketch is just so you don't lose interest while working on the image and you don't lose yourself in the middle of working. Now, I don't usually start with a sketch in my images. This is one rare case of the images that I use sketch for. Okay, now for this image, I inspired from Wakas Malik from ArtStation, and also I wanted to recreate one of my old images that I have on DeviantArt. Okay, so moving from the sketch, you don't have to start with it. It's just so you know what you are doing while are you working. Sorry for my English, it's not perfect, but I hope I deliver the ideas and I hope I make sense. Okay, so moving from the sketch. Now, one other thing that the beginners fall in is that they think that the whole image should be just stock images. It has to be real, and that's not the case because we are working on a concept art. We are not working on a matte painting, because even though we are working on matte painting, some matte painters add some extra details by painting them just using the graphic tablet. Now, for my case, I didn't use the graphic tablet. I used mouse for everything, for the paintings, for the extra details. Extra details just like the branches on the tree, the leaves on the bush on the front and above the tree, that hair that is coming from the deer neck, the light reflection on the model dress from behind, the moss on the rocks. So this is all some extra details. It's secondary details, but it add a lot to the work. It makes it more interesting. So I recommend when you are working on an image and you add some stock images, don't just leave the stock images and finish the work. Add some extra details, make the work more interesting. uh, you don't have to use a graphic tablet, just use the mouse. I painted everything with the mouse, and I'm not good at painting. I just use some random brushes that I got from DeviantArt. The link is going to be in the description. I just painted in random ways, except for the hairs on the deer neck, and also the bones that's coming from his head. I wanted to be more bones because I wanted to look like he is a majestic animal. And the idea was inspired from the Snow White and the Huntsman movie. 2000, I don't remember, but it was a scene where the Snow White is making a connection with a white giant deer with a lot of bones on his head and a lot of hair on his neck. So I got the idea from that. And this is another thing: when you are watching a movie or playing a game, make sure to put your eyes on these details. Look at the backgrounds, look at the colors, look at the details on the scene. Do not just look at it as if it's just a movie. Try to inspire from it, take some ideas from it, because in my case I got this idea from the Snow White and the Huntsman, even though the whole work is inspired by Waqas Malik artwork. But in Waqas Malik image, he has just the river and the stream and the tree. It doesn't have the deer, it doesn't have the model. So I got the idea from an artist, and I added another thing from a movie. And also the way I placed the objects is inspired from one of my old images that I did, and it's posted on DeviantArt. I might put it on the montage, on the video while montaging it. Okay, so this work is a result of three elements, resources. Like it was inspired by another artist's work, one of my old works, and a movie. And as I was saying before, paint some extra details. It's okay, use the mouse. This is the results of painting with the mouse, like the leaves on the tree above. Even though it's not necessary, but it added a lot to the work. You can see it on the speed art before and after I added it. Here's another thing: I didn't just paint it. I got the leaves from a stock image. I put it on the above the tree, and then I start adding some extra leaves. Also, the moss on the rocks. It didn't have the rocks on the front. It didn't have the moss above them, and as you can see on the back, there's rocks with moss above them. So if I left the rocks on the front without moss, it will look like it's not blending with the rest of the image. It will look like the rocks are were taken from different area. Okay, so let's talk about the color correction. And this is a very important thing to talk about, because a lot of artists, when they are making a artwork, they try to give the same color tone to all the objects. And this is wrong, because this will make the image boring and less interesting. Most of the artists, they just get an object and they take the saturation down to the point where it looks like it's nearly black and white, and then they just add color balance. Most of the artists use the color balance, and then they just add the color. And this is wrong, because the image will lose interest. Because in my case, for my image right here, I had on this giant tree alone around 6 different stock images. I could have used the same method to give them all same color. Let's say take the saturation all the way down to the point where they are nearly black and white, and then just add a green color with color balance, and that will make it all green. But I didn't do that, because as I said before, do not give the same color to the all the objects, because that will make it boring, and as if you add a filter above these images. So what I did is, as you can see in my image, there is some reds and yellow and green on the highlights. There is some red, blue, magenta, and green on the shadows. Also, one other thing that a lot of artists do wrong is when they are making a scene that's on the jungle in the nature, they try to give the trees and the plants all the same color, and that's very wrong, because if you look to an image or a photograph or of a forest, you will realize that the trees and the plants doesn't have the same green color, because trees and plants are different species. They have different types. There is some plants more green than the other. There is some plants that are cyanish. There is plants that are yellowish. There is trees are red, green, cyan. They don't have the same green color. So when you are making a nature image, make sure to give them different shades of green and cyan, okay, and yellow. So make sure when you are working on a nature scene, do not give the trees and the plants the same color. Now, what's the correct way to correct a color of an object? First, you need to learn about the color wheel and the color theory. Why is the color wheel important? Because you have to know about the colors and their opposites. And when I say color and their opposites, I mean the red is the opposite of cyan, the green is the opposite of magenta, and the yellow is the opposite of blue. Sorry. Why it's important to know that? Because when you get a stock images that, let's say, were taken in a different weather, there was a filter applied to it. Okay, so for example, let's say you get a stock image of an object that is yellow and you want to give it a green color. Okay, so first you take just a bit of saturation to take some of the original color, but do not go too far beyond minus 50, for example. Minus 50 is the my limit is minus 40. I don't go above that for most of my objects on my works. I never went beyond that, but at the end it depends on the image. If the stock image that you got is too saturated, then you might want to go beyond minus 50. Okay, so in my common cases, I never went beyond minus 40. Okay, so let's say you got an image, stock image of an object that is too yellowish and you want to make it green. So before you make it green, first you need to take some of that yellowish color to get it back to its original color. And the way to do it is either use curves or color patterns or levels. I recommend for that for color correction, use the the curves, because it has more points and it gives you more control of the object. Also, when you use the curves, it will show you on the curve that where is the area that has the most yellow color on it. Okay, so you add the curves adjustment layer, for example, and you go to the yellow channel and look for the area that has the most yellowish tone, and put point there, and then drag the point to the top, and that will add blue. Now, the object will not look blue, because in that case, when the object is yellow and you add in blue, you are just giving it its original color. You are not changing the color. You are just taking the yellowish tone or the yellowish filter, and you are giving it its natural color. After you do that, now you can go to the green channel, and then you can add the green, or you can just add a color balance and then add the green. Because when it's about color correction, I use the curves and the levels, and when it's about color changing, I prefer to use curves and color balance. Okay, so this is one thing. before you change the color of the object, make sure to give it its original color, its natural color. And you will have to use your eyes for that. Train your eyes to know if the image that you are using is affected by a filter, or there is a color that's applied too much on the image. The more you work on your images, the more you work on concept art and matte painting, the more you train your eyes and your hand on the mouse. And to know more about color correcting in objects, make sure to get my course. The link is going to be down on the description. But I hope you get the idea. Do not use hue, saturation, and color balance. Use the curves and the levels more, and try to get the original color of the object. Okay, let's move on to the next tip is know your keyboard shortcuts. Keyboard shortcuts is very important thing to know about if you are making a concept art. Now, the difference between concept art and a photo manipulation, I believe concept art and matte paintings take more time. Actually, a lot of time. It takes a lot of time. Sometimes it takes days, weeks. So to shorten that time, I recommend you learn your keyboard shortcuts. Keyboard shortcuts are very important, not just like the basic keyboard shortcut that we use it on the daily basis, like Control C, Control V. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about shortcuts that really save you time. And I want to make an episode where I show you the keyboard shortcuts that I use on my images. I use the same keyboard shortcuts, the same ones in most of my works, and it saves a lot of time. Like, for example, let's see the deer hair and cutting some objects like the trees and painting that extra bones on the deer head. I use the shortcuts of the shift and the arrow keys, the left and the right one. So what that does do, and this is a huge trick that might take your images to the next level, is choose a soft or a hard brush and click on F5 or go to the Windows and the brush settings. Now, when you go there, you will realize that Photoshop will give you the shape of the brush that you are working with on a circle, and there is an arrow going in the middle of the circle, and there is 2 points, one on the top and the other on the bottom. Okay, I want you to click on one of these points and drag it to the if you chose the top points, drag it to the bottom, and if you chose the bottom points, drag it to the top, and that will turn the shape of the brush, the soft or the hard brush, from a circle to a tightened circle, like for example my mic filter right here. This is the original shape of the brush, and when you tighten it, it will look like that. Okay, it will look sharp. You will make it sharp, and when you make the brush sharp and use the shift and the arrow keys, you will paint the hair in a perfect way and easier way, because in the old days we know about this rumor that's saying you can't paint the hair with the mouse. You will need a graphic tablet. Now this is an old news. Well, not here, because when you are working on a woman hair, that will be hard. It works for me. Now I'm using it a lot and it's working perfect. I can paint hair in a perfect way. It doesn't matter if it's long hair or short hair, or it's a fur of an animal. As you know, the hair is going in different direction. Just use the shift and the left and the right arrow keys, and that will change the direction of the brush. Just set the direction of the brush with the direction of the hair, and just start painting, and that will make painting the hair more easier for you. Even though I got the picture from a lion, the hair of the lion, but still I used the brush to paint the edges and the light reflection on that fur. Okay, also I use this technique to paint the extra bones that's coming from the deer head. Also I use it to paint that uh, color on the deer body and stomach and eyes. I didn't want to paint it with a normal soft brush because it will look like it was painted, but because when you are painting on a fur or on a hair, you have to follow the hair of the body. Now, talking about cutting objects, I don't recommend using the pencil a lot. I see a lot of artists using the pencil to cut animals, to cut trees, to cut models, to cut rocks, and this is wrong. First of all, because it takes a lot of time, and secondly, because we don't want the edges of the object to be perfectly straightened or to be perfectly cut. We are not working on a cartoonist scene. We are not working on a graphic design. We are working on a real image. We are trying to make a scene that looks similar to reality. So I use the pencil only if the object that I'm cutting is in a geometric shape, like the cars, spaceship, that things. But when it comes to nature, animals, models, plants, any of these things, I prefer to use either the brush and the mouse, or I prefer to use the lasso tool. And in order to use those two things, you will need a hand of the artist. That's what they call it. And the hand of the artist is a hand that's used to the mouse. When you use the mouse, you will realize that you are not shaking a lot. This is the hand of the artist, so it's supposed to be perfectly steady when you are cutting something. And in my work right here on the speed art, I didn't use the pencil in any of these objects that you see. I used the brush and masking and lasso tool for some of the works, and also to cut the deer and the lion, I used the magic stamp tool because it was a white background. You will have problem on the white strokes that's coming from the object when you take it from a white background. I did a video on this channel named how to cut anything in Photoshop, and I told you guys how to get rid of that stroke lines, white strokes. Okay, so yeah, get your hand used to the mouse, and the way to do it is just get some hard to cut objects and train your hand by following the edges of that object, and with time you will find that you have a steady hand and cutting objects will look much easier for you. And to know what color complements the other color, just study the color wheel. It will show you what colors to use with the other color and what colors to not use with the other color, because some colors just don't match other colors, and it will make the work hard to look at. One other thing is learn from the real life. When you are outside your house, let's say you are in a trip, or you are on the streets, or on you are going to college or any place, make sure to look to the places, look to the sky, look to the ground, look to the objects, see the colors, see the lighting, try to learn from it, try to learn from the real life, look at the details, see how lighting work. And that the more you do that, the more you realize when you are working on image, you will start to be more careful and more detailed about some certain things like the lighting. And one other thing is give your image a lot of colors. Do not just use two colors, even though it works, but I recommend just use different colors in areas that is not too noticeable. In my case, on this image, I have those butterflies above the deer that is blue. Okay, so one other thing that I want to talk about is the idea of the work itself. And this work, to find the image of the deer and the model, it took me a lot of time. I could have chose any image of any model that's dressed in a medieval way, in medieval style. I could have chosen any deer, and I got a lot of deer images, and I wanted to choose between them. But in the end, ended up looking for another one, because after I finished the scene, before I add the deer and the model, I found out that the deer images that I downloaded before didn't match the scene that I made, so I had to look for another one. Yeah, so do not rush yourself and add any model or any object. Make sure that the object or the model that make sure that they match the story that you want to tell. The make sure they are um, not just random images. Make sure that they add something to the story that you want to tell. And yeah, don't just make an artwork just like that. Make sure that the artwork that you are making has story to it. One other thing I forgot to mention is when you are working on a scene, make sure to flip it horizontally every now and then. And the reason why, because when you are working on a scene for a long time, you will start to feel bored from the scene. So if you flip it horizontally, you will feel like you are working on a brand new scene, and you will get the interest of working back. Also, uh, maybe after you flip the image, you will like the new perspective or the new side even better. So yeah, try that. Okay guys, so this is it for this speed art video. I hope you learned something from my tips and tricks and my experience. I'm sure if you follow it, it will take your work to the next level if you are a beginner, of course. Do not forget to follow us on our social media. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell for the notification, so you get the notification for my next videos, that I will probably cover some of the things that I talked about right now in specific ways while I'm working on them on Photoshop. And this is it for my time, guys. I will see you in the next videos. Peace.